The day humanity joined the Galactic Concord was supposed to be the greatest moment in their history. For 200 years, they had dreamed of reaching the stars. For 50 more, they had fought and struggled to prove themselves worthy of a seat among the ancient races. And now, finally, they stood in the great hall of the Concord Station, surrounded by beings who had traveled between galaxies when humans were still learning to make fire. Captain Lena Vance stood at the front of the human delegation. She was a tall woman with gray streaks in her dark hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. Behind her stood admirals, scientists, and diplomats. They all wore their finest uniforms. They all tried to look calm, but Alina could feel their nervous energy. This was the moment that would define humanity's future. The Concord chamber was enormous. Its walls curved upward like the inside of a shell, covered in lights that represented every star system in the known galaxy. Thousands of alien delegates filled the seats. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some were made of pure energy. Some looked like nothing Alina had ever imagined. All of them watched the humans with expressions that ranged from curiosity to contempt. The ceremony began with speeches. Elder races welcomed humanity to the galactic family. They spoke of cooperation, shared knowledge, and mutual growth. But Alina noticed that few of them looked at the humans when they spoke. Their eyes wandered. Their words felt empty. To them, humanity was not a new partner. Humanity was a child who had finally learned to walk and now expected applause. Then came the gift. It was tradition in the Concord that every new species received a decommissioned vessel from the Joint Fleet. This was meant to help young civilizations defend themselves until they could build their own ships. It was supposed to be an act of generosity, a welcome present. The Valori delegation stepped forward to present humanity's gift. The Valori were one of the oldest races in the galaxy. Their bodies were made of living crystal that caught the light and scattered it into rainbows. They were beautiful in the way that statues were beautiful, cold, perfect, untouchable, and they had made it very clear, through 1,000 small insults over the past decades, that they considered humans to be barely more than clever animals. Ambassador Kethvorin of the Valori held up a holographic display. The image showed a ship. It was small compared to the massive warships Alina had seen in the Concord fleet. Its hull was dented and patched in dozens of places. Its design was old, very old. "We present to humanity the vessel known as the Errant Whisper," Kethvorin announced. His voice rang through the chamber like crystal bells. "A Sithari medical frigate, 300 years of service. May it serve your people well." A ripple of quiet laughter passed through the chamber. Alina kept her face still, but she felt her stomach drop. She knew ships. This one was a wreck. No weapons. Shields that were probably failing. Engines that looked like they belonged in a museum. She stepped forward to accept the gift. Protocol demanded that she say something gracious. Something thankful. She could feel the eyes of every human delegate on her back, waiting to see how she would respond to this obvious insult. "On behalf of Earth and all human colonies," Alina said, her voice steady, "we accept this generous gift. We are grateful for the trust the Concord places in us." Kethvorin smiled. At least, Alina thought it was a smile. With Valori, it was hard to tell. "The Errant Whisper has a unique feature," he added, almost as an afterthought. "A fold engine. Experimental technology that the Sithari developed before their extinction. It was never completed successfully. Perhaps your people will find some use for it." More laughter. Alina heard someone whisper the word junk in a language her translator barely caught. She nodded politely and stepped back. The ceremony ended an hour later. The human delegation returned to their shuttle in silence. Nobody spoke until the doors closed behind them and they were alone. Admiral Chen was the first to explode. A medical frigate? 300 years old? With a broken engine that nobody in the entire galaxy could make work. He slammed his fist against the wall. "They gave us garbage. They gave us actual garbage," and smiled while doing it. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the delegation's chief scientist, was already pulling up data on her tablet. "The fold engine," she muttered. "I've read about this. The Sithari designed it to bend space. Instantaneous travel. No distance limitations. But every test ended in disaster. The calculations required are supposedly impossible, so it's worthless, said Admiral Chen. According to everyone who has ever tried to use it, yes. Alina stood by the window, watching the stars. She had not spoken since leaving the chamber. Her mind was working through the problem, turning it over like a puzzle. Captain, Yuki asked. What are you thinking? Alina turned to face her team. These were the people who had spent their lives reaching for the stars. They had survived first contact, fought off pirates, negotiated treaties with races that saw humans as insects. They had earned their place here through blood and determination. And the galaxy had just told them, in the clearest possible way, that none of it mattered. I'm thinking, Alina said slowly, that they gave us this ship for a reason. Not to help us, to humiliate us. They wanted us to limp back to Earth with a broken vessel that proves we don't belong here. So what do we do? Chen asked. Alina smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a woman who had been underestimated her entire life and had learned to use that as a weapon. We take their garbage, she said. We drag it home, and we figure out what everyone else missed. Because that's what humans do. We take the things nobody else wants, and we make them work. The shuttle detached from the Concorde station and began its long journey back to Earth. Behind them, alien delegates returned to their comfortable lives, already forgetting the brief appearance of the new species. The humans were no threat. The humans had nothing. The humans would struggle for a few centuries and then fade away. Like so many others before them, none of them noticed. The look in Captain Alina Vance's eyes as she watched. The stars passed by, none of them understood what they had just given away. The errant whisper waited in a holding bay, silent and broken and patient. Its fold engine sat dormant in the heart of the ship, filled with potential that no alien mind had ever been able to unlock. But humans were not like other minds. Humans were messy, contradictory, stubborn beyond all reason, and they were very, very good at making impossible things work. The errant whisper sat in a military shipyard orbiting Mars for 3 months before anyone could figure out what to do with it. Engineers came and went. Scientists ran tests. Computer experts tried to understand the alien systems. Everyone agreed on one thing. The ship was broken beyond repair. The shields flickered on and off without warning. The medical equipment was designed for species that no longer existed. The hull had so many patches that nobody was sure what the original metal even looked like. And the fold engine sat in the center of the ship like a sleeping giant. Beautiful and completely useless. Dr. Marcus Webb arrived on a Tuesday. He was not the kind of person the military usually invited to secret projects. He was 53 years old, thin as a wire, with wild gray hair that he never remembered to comb. His clothes were always wrinkled. His eyes always looked like he had not slept in days. 10 years ago, he had been a respected physicist at one of Earth's best universities. Then he had published a paper about probability mathematics that his colleagues called interesting but insane. He had lost his job, his funding, and his reputation. For the past decade, he had been teaching basic math at a community college and dreaming about ideas that nobody wanted to hear. The message from the UN, the Science Council, had surprised him. They wanted him to look at an alien engine. They did not explain why they had chosen him. They simply sent a shuttle and told him to pack a bag. When Marcus first saw the fold engine, he stood in front of it for 2 hours without moving. The engineers thought he had frozen. They offered him coffee. They asked if he was okay. He did not hear them. His mind was somewhere else entirely. The engine was a sphere of interlocking rings, each one covered in symbols that shifted and changed as you watched them. Energy flowed through the rings in patterns that seemed random but felt purposeful. It was like looking at a language that your brain almost understood but could not quite read. Everyone says it's impossible, said Dr. Yuki Tanaka. She had been assigned to guide Marcus through the project. The calculations required to fold space are too complex. The Sithari who built this were a hive mind species, thousands of brains working as one. Even they couldn't make it work reliably. Marcus finally spoke. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "Show me the test data," Yuki showed him. Simulation after simulation, all ending in failure. The math was clear. To fold space safely, you needed to solve thousands of equations simultaneously. But the equations contradicted each other. You had to hold two opposite answers in your mind at the same time. No computer could do it. No single brain could do it. The Scytheri had tried using their linked minds, but even they could not maintain the necessary contradictions. Their brains automatically resolve conflicts. They could not disagree with themselves. Marcus read through the data 3 times. Then he started to laugh. "Why UK?" I stared at him. "Dr. Webb? Are you all right?" Marcus turned to her with tears in his eyes, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of joy. "I've been waiting my whole life for this," he said. "This is exactly what I've been studying. This is what they called me crazy for. I don't understand." Marcus grabbed her shoulders. "The engine doesn't need a computer. It doesn't need a hive mind. It needs disagreement. It needs contradiction. It needs minds that can believe two opposite things at the same time and refuse to resolve them." "That's impossible," Yuki said. "No intelligent being can do that." Marcus grinned. "Humans can. Humans do it every single day. We hold contradictory beliefs all the time. We argue with ourselves. We doubt ourselves. We believe things that don't make sense because feelings don't follow logic. The Scytheri saw that as a weakness. They were wrong. It's the key to everything." Over the next 6 months, Marcus and Yuki built something that had never existed before. They called it the Chorus Protocol. The idea was simple in theory and terrifying in practice. 7 human navigators would link their minds through a neural interface. But unlike the Scytheri hive mind, they would not try to think as one. They would deliberately think differently. Each navigator would focus on a different piece of the equation. They would disagree with each other. They would argue. They would hold contradictions in their linked minds without resolving them. The math said it would work. The simulations said it would work. But simulations could not account for the human factor. Nobody knew what would happen when 7 minds tried to disagree on purpose. While folded into the fabric of space, the volunteers knew the risks. There were 17 applicants. Only 7 were chosen. They spent 3 months training together, learning to trust each other, learning to argue without anger, learning to hold impossible thoughts without losing themselves. The day of the first test, Captain Alina Vance stood on the bridge of the Errant Whisper. She had refused to let anyone else command the flight. If her crew was going to risk their lives, she would risk hers alongside them. The 7 navigators took their positions in a circle around the fold engine. The neural links activated. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the screaming began. 7 voices crying out as one. Not in pain. In something beyond pain. In the feeling of space itself bending around them, of distance becoming meaningless, of here and there becoming the same thing. Alina gripped her chair and watched the view screen. The stars outside stretched into lines of light. The ship groaned. Alarms blared. The walls seemed to ripple like water, and then it was over. The stars returned to normal. The alarms stopped. The navigators fell silent, breathing hard. Tears streaming down their faces. Yuki's voice came over the comm, trembling with disbelief. "Captain, we just traveled 3 light years, instantaneously. The fold engine works." Alina closed her eyes. For a moment, she allowed herself to feel the weight of what they had just accomplished. Humanity had done something that the entire galaxy believed was impossible. They had taken a broken gift and made it sing. She opened her eyes and straightened her shoulders. There was no time for celebration. They had just announced themselves to the universe in the loudest possible way. Now they had to figure out what to do next. The news spread faster than anyone expected. Within a week, every intelligence agency in the Galactic Concord knew that the humans had done something strange with their broken ship. Within a month, they knew the humans had made the fold engine work. Within 3 months, the entire galaxy was asking the same question. How? The Concorde sent official requests for information. Earth sent polite replies that said nothing useful. The Valori demanded explanations. Earth smiled and offered to discuss the matter at the next diplomatic summit, which was scheduled for 2 years away. Captain Alina Vance used those 2 years well. The errant Whisper could now travel anywhere in the galaxy instantly. It could appear without warning and disappear before anyone could react. But it was still a medical frigate with no weapons. In a universe full of warships and battle cruisers, it was still defenseless. If anyone decided to attack humanity before they could build a proper fleet, the fold engine would mean nothing. Alina gathered her team in a conference room on the ship. They had been working for weeks on the same problem, and nobody had found a solution. Installing weapons would take years. The ship's frame was not designed for combat. Every option they considered was too slow, too expensive, or too obvious. Chief Engineer Omar Hassan sat in the corner, quiet as always. He was a large man with rough hands and kind eyes. He had grown up in the slums of old Cairo, where nothing was ever thrown away. Everything had value if you knew how to look at it. He had spent his life building useful things from garbage, fixing broken machines, making something from nothing. While the others argued about weapon systems and armor plating, Omar studied the ship's original specifications. The errant Whisper had been a medical vessel. Its entire purpose was healing. Every system on board was designed to help, to repair, to save lives. Omar raised his hand. The room fell silent. He rarely spoke in meetings, but when he did, people listened. "We are asking the wrong question," Omar said. "We keep asking how to add weapons to a medical ship. But what if we don't need to add anything? What if everything we need is already here?" Alina leaned forward. "Explain." Omar stood and walked to the display screen. He pulled up a diagram of the ship's medical systems. This vessel was designed to heal any species in the galaxy. Its scanners can analyze biological matter at the molecular level. Its surgical drones can make cuts so precise that they are invisible to the naked eye. Its quarantine fields can isolate a single cell from everything around it. "We know all this," said Admiral Chen impatiently. "None of it helps us fight." Omar smiled. "What is a weapon, Admiral?" "It is a tool that causes harm instead of healing. Every system on this ship can be inverted. We do not need to build new things. We need to use old things in new ways." Over the next 6 months, Omar and his engineering team transformed the errant Whisper without adding a single traditional weapon. The bioscanners were reconfigured. Instead of looking for disease, they now detected stress fractures in whole materials, weaknesses in shield generators, and flaws in power systems. The ship could analyze any enemy vessel and know exactly where it was most vulnerable. The surgical drones were reprogrammed. Instead of healing wounds, they could now cut through the smallest gaps in any hull. They could slip inside enemy ships through vents and maintenance hatches, then disable critical systems with cuts thinner than a human hair. No alarm would sound. No damage would be visible. The enemy would simply stop working. The quarantine fields were reversed. Instead of containing threats, they now projected interference patterns that scrambled enemy sensors and targeting computers. Any ship caught in the field would be blind, unable to see or shoot. And all of these capabilities were powered by the fold engine. The errant Whisper could appear anywhere, strike without being detected, and vanish before anyone knew it was there. Alina watched the final tests with a mixture of pride and unease. They had created something new. Something that had never existed before. A ship that could disable any fleet without firing a single shot. A ghost that could reach anywhere and touch anything. "What do we call it?" Yuki asked. Alina thought for a moment. "We call it what it is. A whisper. You don't hear it until it's already spoken. You don't see it until it's already gone." The first real test came 3 months later. A fleet of raiders from a species called the Kreth had been attacking human cargo ships along the outer colonies. The Kreth were not members of the Concorde. They answered to no laws. They killed crews, stole cargo, and disappeared into regions of space where no authority could follow. The Concorde expressed sympathy, but offered no help. Humanity was expected to solve its own problems. Alina took the errant Whisper to the Kreth staging area. The raiders had gathered 12 ships to plan their next attack. They did not detect the human vessel's approach because there was nothing to detect. The fold engine did not create energy signatures. It simply made distance stop existing. The errant Whisper appeared in the center of the Kreth. Fleet for exactly 45 seconds. The surgical drones found the gaps in the raiders' hulls. They slipped inside and cut the power conduits, the weapon systems, the life support controls. The quarantine fields blinded every sensor. The Kreth never saw what hit them. When the 45 seconds ended, the errant Whisper was gone. The Kreth fleet drifted in silence. 12 ships, completely disabled, unable to move or fight or call for help. Their crews were unharmed but trapped. 3 days later, Concord patrol ships found them and towed them to prison stations. No one had seen the attack. No one could explain what had happened. The Kreth survivors said only one thing, repeating it over and over with fear in their eyes. The humans came like ghosts, and ghosts cannot be stopped. Word spread through the galaxy. The species that had been given a broken ship now had something that no one understood, something that could reach anywhere and defeat anyone without ever being seen. The ghost stories had begun. The Valori had ruled their sector of the galaxy. For 12,000 years, their crystalline homeworld of Valor Prime was protected by a defense grid so powerful that no fleet had ever breached it. Ships that tried were destroyed. Before they could get within 1,000,000 kilometers, the grid was legendary. It was the reason the Valori could do whatever they wanted without fear of consequences. No one could touch them. No one could threaten them. No one could make them pay for their cruelty. They had spent centuries bullying younger species. They manipulated trade agreements. They stole resources from worlds too weak to resist. They smiled at diplomatic summits, while their agents destroyed anyone who opposed them. The Concord knew what they were doing. Everyone knew, but no one could stop them because no one could reach them. When humanity began to rise, the Valori felt something they had not experienced in millennia. They felt worried. The ghost stories about the errant Whisper reached Valor Prime within a year. The Valori intelligence agencies studied the reports and dismissed them as exaggeration. A single medical frigate defeating entire fleets? Impossible. The humans were bluffing. They had to be. But doubt had taken root in the crystalline minds of the Valori leadership. Ambassador Kethvorin proposed a solution. Crush the humans now, before they became a real threat. Show the galaxy that the Valori were still supreme. The council agreed. The attacks began 6 months later. Valori raiders started targeting human colony ships. They claimed territorial violations that did not exist. They destroyed cargo vessels. They killed crews and blamed the deaths on mechanical failures. Each incident was small enough to deny, large enough to hurt Earth, sent protests to the Concord. The Concord investigated and found nothing conclusive. Valori representatives expressed sympathy and promised to look into the matter. Behind closed doors, they laughed. Ambassador Kethvorin delivered his ultimatum on a bright morning in the Concord chamber. He stood at the speaker's platform, his crystalline body catching the light, his voice ringing with absolute confidence. The Valori Empire has determined that humanity has violated 17 sections of galactic territory law, he announced. We demand the immediate surrender of 3 human colony worlds as compensation. We demand the complete dismantling of the illegal fold engine research program. Demand that humanity submit to Valori guidance for the next standard century to ensure compliance with galactic norms. The chamber was silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The Valori were claiming humanity as a subject species. Surrender or face destruction. Captain Alina Vance rose from her seat in the human delegation. She had expected this moment for months. She had prepared for it. But expecting something and facing it were different things. Her heart was pounding as she walked to the response platform. The human government requests 48 hours to consider this generous offer, she said. Her voice was calm. Her hands were steady. We will provide our formal response at that time. Kethvorin smiled his crystalline smile. Of course. Take your time. Consider carefully. The meaning was clear. Surrender or die. There was no third option. Alina returned to her seat. She did not look at the other delegates. She did not respond to the whispered questions from her own team. She simply sat and waited for the session to end. That night, the errant Whisper launched from its hidden dock near Earth. 7 navigators took their positions around the fold engine. Captain Alina Vance stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the stars. "Are you sure about this, Captain?" Yuki asked. She stood beside Alina, her face pale with fear. "If this doesn't work, we won't just start a war. We'll start a war we can't win." Alina nodded slowly. "I know. If we surrender, we lose everything anyway. At least this way we have a chance." The fold engine activated. Space bent around the ship. Distance stopped existing, and the errant Whisper appeared in the heart of Valori's space, directly above their capital city. The defense grid did not react. There was nothing to react to. Ship had not approached. It had not traveled through protected space. It had simply appeared, like a thought forming in a sleeping mind. The sensors saw nothing because there was nothing to see. The weapons tracked nothing because there was nothing to track. The errant Whisper held position for exactly 60 seconds. On every screen on Valor Prime, a message appeared. Every holodisplay, every communication device, every public broadcast system showed the same thing. Captain Alina Vance's face, looking directly at the viewer. "People of Valor Prime," she said. Her voice was quiet, almost gentle. "We could have done anything in these 60 seconds. We could have destroyed your power systems. We could have disabled your defense grid. We could have reached your council chamber itself. We chose not to. We chose to talk." She paused. The silence stretched across an entire world. "Your leaders have given humanity an ultimatum. They believe we are weak because we are young. Believe we cannot touch them because their walls are strong. They are wrong on both counts. Your walls mean nothing to us. Your defenses cannot see us. Your weapons cannot stop us." On the bridge of the errant Whisper, Alina took a breath. This was the moment that would decide everything. "We are not here to threaten you. We are here to show you the truth. Your leaders have 48 hours to withdraw their ultimatum. If they do not, we will return. And next time, we will not just talk." The message ended. The screens went dark. The errant Whisper vanished as silently as it had come. On Valor Prime, chaos erupted. The Defense Command spent 12 hours trying to understand how the humans had penetrated their grid. They found nothing. No gap in coverage. No weakness in the sensors. No explanation that made sense. The humans had simply appeared and disappeared like ghosts. The council met in emergency session. Kethvorin demanded immediate military action, but the generals refused. How could they attack an enemy they could not see? How could they defend against a ship that ignored all defenses? If the humans had wanted to destroy Valor Prime, they could have done it. They had proven that beyond any doubt. 47 hours after the ultimatum was delivered, Ambassador Kethvorin returned to the Concord chamber. His crystalline face showed no emotion, but his voice was strained as he spoke. "No. The Valori Empire has reconsidered the territorial dispute with humanity. We have determined that our initial assessment contained errors. The ultimatum is withdrawn. We look forward to peaceful relations with our human friends." He did not wait for questions. He did not make eye contact with the human delegation. He simply turned and left the chamber as quickly as dignity allowed. Captain Alina Vance watched him go. She felt no triumph, only exhaustion and a deep, quiet hope that she had made the right choice. The galaxy had just learned something important about humanity. They did not seek war. They did not enjoy power. But when pushed into a corner, they could push back in ways that no one expected. And they would always choose to talk first. The galaxy changed slowly at first, and then all at once. In the months following the Valori incident, the errant Whisper became more than a ship. It became a symbol. Stories spread from system to system, growing larger with each telling. The humans had faced down the most powerful empire in the galaxy and won without firing a single shot. They had taken a broken gift and turned it into something that changed the rules of everything. But what surprised the galaxy most was what humanity did next. The Concord formally requested access to fold engine technology. Every major species wanted it. The ability to travel anywhere instantly would reshape trade, diplomacy, and warfare forever. They expected humanity to refuse, or to demand enormous payment, or to use the technology as leverage for political power. Instead, humanity offered to share it freely. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, now serving as humanity's senior representative to the Concord, presented the proposal at a special assembly. The chamber was packed with delegates from every known species. The air hummed with tension and disbelief. The fold engine works because of the Chorus Protocol, Yuki explained. And the Chorus Protocol works because it requires minds that embrace contradiction. Different species think in different ways. Our scientists believe that any species capable of internal disagreement, of holding opposing ideas simultaneously, can learn to operate the system. We are prepared to share everything we know. A Valori delegate rose from his seat. His crystalline form caught the light as he spoke, and his voice was sharp with suspicion. What do you want in exchange? Territory? Resources? Influence in the council? Yuki smiled. It was a genuine smile, warm and a little sad. We want only one thing. That the technology be shared with everyone? It's not just the powerful species? It's not just the wealthy ones? Everyone. The refugees who cannot escape war zones. Colonists stranded on dying worlds. The species too small and too weak to matter to anyone else. Silence fell over the chamber. The delegates looked at each other, trying to understand. In all the history of the Concord, no species had ever given away an advantage this large without demanding something in return. Why, the question came? From an elderly delegate of the Morith, a species known for their wisdom and their long memories. Why would you give away your greatest weapon? Yuki turned to face him directly, because the errant whisper was never a weapon. It was an idea. And the best ideas are not meant to be hoarded. They are meant to spread. She paused, letting the words settle into the minds of every delegate in the chamber. When we first joined the Concord, we were given a broken ship as a joke. We were told in 1,000 small ways that we did not matter, that we were too young, too weak, too primitive to deserve a place among the stars. But we took that broken ship and we made it fly. Not because we were smarter than everyone else. Not because we were stronger. Because we were stubborn. Because we refused to believe that something was impossible, just because everyone said it was. She gestured toward the viewing window, where the stars burned in the endless dark. There are species out there who are being told the same things we were told. They are being crushed, ignored, forgotten. They are being given garbage and told to be grateful. We remember what that felt like, and we refuse to let anyone else feel that way if we can help it. The vote passed 3 hours later, not unanimously. The Valori and a few of their allies voted against it. But the majority agreed. Fold technology would be shared openly, taught freely, given to anyone who wanted to learn. In the years that followed, the galaxy transformed. The errant whisper became a rescue vessel. It escorted refugee convoys through hostile territory, appearing without warning beside vulnerable ships and daring predators to attack. It delivered medical supplies to quarantined worlds that the Concord had abandoned. It carried diplomats into war zones where no other vessel could survive. Captain? Elena Vance retired from active command after 5 years, but she never truly left the ship. She spent her final decades training new captains, teaching them not just how to operate the fold engine, but how to understand what it represented. The power to go anywhere was not a weapon. It was a responsibility. Other species began building their own fold-capable vessels. Some used them for trade. Some used them for exploration. A few tried to use them for conquest, but they quickly learned that the humans had been right. A technology shared by everyone could not be monopolized by anyone. The balance of power shifted in ways that no one had predicted. Small species suddenly had options. Isolated worlds suddenly had connections. The galaxy became smaller and larger at the same time. 20 years after the day humanity received its gift, a young historian traveled to Earth to interview the people who had made history. She spoke with Omar Hassan about his engineering philosophy. She spoke with Marcus Webb about his theories of probability and contradiction. She spoke with Yuki Tanaka about diplomacy and hope. Finally, She found Captain Elena Vance in a small house by the ocean, watching the waves roll in under a gray sky. "Captain," the historian said, "I have to ask. When you first saw the errant whisper, when you realized what the Valerie had given you, what did you feel?" Elena was silent for a long moment. Her hair was white now, her face lined with age, but her eyes were still sharp, still seeing things that others missed. "Grateful," she said at last. The historian blinked. "Grateful? They gave you garbage. They were trying to humiliate you," Elena smiled. "They thought they were giving us garbage, but that is not what I saw. I saw a puzzle that no one had solved. I saw potential that no one had recognized. I saw a chance to prove what humans could do when everyone expected us to fail." She turned to look at the historian directly. Every species in that chamber saw what the errant whisper could not do. We saw what it could become. That has always been humanity's real gift. Not strength, not intelligence, just stubborn imagination. The refusal to accept that something is worthless just because everyone else says so. The historian wrote down every word. Later, she would use them in her book, The Definitive History of Humanity's First Century Among the Stars. But in that moment, sitting in a small house by the sea, she felt something that she had not expected to feel. She felt hope. The errant whisper still flies. Its crew has changed dozens of times. Its hull has been rebuilt twice. The original fold engine remains at its heart, still powered by the impossible calculations of contradictory minds working in deliberate disagreement. On the bridge, there is a dedication plaque that has been there since the beginning. The words were chosen by Captain Elena Vance herself, and every crew member who serves on the ship learns them by heart. They meant to give us garbage. They gave us wings. The ship carries those words through the stars. A whisper that became a shout. A joke that became a revolution. A broken thing that changed everything, and somewhere in the galaxy, another young species is receiving their own broken gift, their own worthless ship, their own chance to prove what everyone else believes is impossible. The humans are watching, and they are ready to help. Because that, in the end, is what the errant whisper taught them. The greatest power is not the ability to destroy. It is the ability to reach out across the darkness and lift someone else up. And that power is worth sharing with everyone.